With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Welcome back, Deep Divers. Today we're going deep on entrepreneurship in cybersecurity.
Ooh, yeah, diving into the world of startups and all that. Huh?
Exactly. And we've got this incredible interview with Eduardo Di Monte.
Oh, yeah, Eduardo.
He's the co-founder of Edan Ventures, you know?
Right, a Spanish investment fund, right.
Yeah, but they're laser focused on cybersecurity, you know, which is really interesting.
And for sure. And I mean, Eduardo's resume, it's like, whoa.
Right?
The guy's done it all, you know?
Yeah, consultant, CISO. He even founded and sold his own cybersecurity company.
Wild. And now he's basically like guiding the next generation, right, with Edan Ventures.
It is kind of like having like a guide up Mount Everest, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Like a cybersecurity Sherpa. You need that experience in this field, man.
Totally. So one thing that really struck me about Eduardo's perspective is he compares the entrepreneur's journey to running a marathon.
Oh, interesting. I can see that.
Yeah, it's not just about like the physical endurance, though.
Right. Got to have that mental toughness, too. Like that fire in your belly that keeps you going when you hit mile 20 and everything hurts.
Yeah, and in cybersecurity, it's that same drive that gets you through the all-nighters and the funding rejections.
Oh, yeah. And trying to, like, always stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Eduardo's not just talking the talk, you know? He built his first company from scratch.
He was in the trenches.
Yeah, and he's really open about the isolation that a lot of entrepreneurs feel, which is actually a big reason why he started Edan Ventures.
I see what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, to kind of build this supportive community for cybersecurity startups.
It makes sense when you think about it. It's like you're up there making these huge decisions, but it can feel like you're all alone.
Totally. And I think having that network, like mentors, advisors, people who've been there, that can make all the difference.
Like a pit crew during that marathon, right? They're not running it for you, but they're there to help you get to the finish line.
Exactly. So Eduardo's journey took a bit of a turn when Rockwell Automation acquired his company.
Oh, wow. So they got snatched up.
Yeah, it's actually a great example of why, like, big companies often go after the smaller players in this field.
Right. I mean, it's not always about, like, destroying the competition, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about bringing in that fresh blood, that innovation.
I see.
Like these big companies, they can get bogged down, you know, with all their processes and their hierarchies.
Mm-hmm.
And then they see this nimble little startup and they're like, we need some of that energy.
It makes you wonder if, like, getting acquired is the goal for a lot of cybersecurity entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah, almost like their exit strategy from the beginning.
But, you know, Eduardo's clear that, like, it's not the only path to success. He wants entrepreneurs to build these, like, lasting businesses, whether they get acquired or go public or whatever.
Right. Makes sense. So what else did Eduardo have to say?
Well, he had some pretty strong opinions about the mistakes that entrepreneurs make. Like, one of the biggest ones, he says, is overvaluing the idea, you know?
Oh, yeah, that aha moment. I've got the next $1 billion idea.
Right. But he emphasizes that, like, ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution is everything.
Especially in cybersecurity, right? I mean, you're dealing with people's data, their security, their privacy.
High stakes. So what does successful execution actually look like then?
Well, Eduardo has this framework. He calls it the 4 pillars of cybersecurity execution.
Oh, interesting. Okay, what's the first pillar?
Problem market fit. Basically, are you actually solving a real problem?
Right.
You could have the most amazing tech in the world, but if nobody needs it,
it's going nowhere. Okay, so problem market fit. What's the next pillar?
Team dynamics. You need people with a variety of skills, business, marketing, legal, the whole shebang. You can't just be a tech genius and expect to succeed.
Yeah, cybersecurity is a team sport. What's number 3?
Agile iteration. You got to be able to adapt, change direction, maybe even scrap a whole plan if you need to. This is where that marathon analogy comes back in, right? Got to adjust your pace based on the terrain.
Right. The cybersecurity landscape is constantly changing. Okay, we've got problem market fit, we've got team dynamics, agile iteration. What's the final pillar?
Continuous learning. You have to always be learning, always be improving, staying on top of the latest threats and technologies.
So it's not just about having a good idea. It's about having a plan to make that idea a reality.
Exactly. And that's where Eduardo's experience is so valuable. He's seen it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
And he's not afraid to share those lessons, right?
No, not at all. He even talks about, failing fast and failing forward. You're going to make mistakes, but it's what you learn from them that matters.
It's like that saying, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet, right?
Yeah, something like that. But I really liked his advice about don't be afraid to kill your darlings.
What does he mean by that?
He's talking about like those features or product lines that you're emotionally attached to, but that aren't really working.
Ah, okay. Sometimes you got to let go.
Tough.
Yeah.
But sometimes necessary.
Now, speaking of tough decisions, Eduardo had a fascinating observation about the structure of the cybersecurity market itself.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
He notices there's this lack of mid-sized companies. You've got these big players on one end and all these tiny startups on the other.
Huh. Yeah, interesting. Why do you think that is?
Well, he thinks it's partly because of the demands of the market, You need a lot of resources to scale up and compete with the big guys.
Right, and the threats are constantly changing, so you got to be able to adapt quickly.
Yeah, it's like you need to be able to evolve at like warp speed.
Totally, and that's where his insight about the Spanish cybersecurity market is so fascinating,
Oh, yeah. What does he say about that?
Well, he thinks it's super undervalued, even though there's a ton of talent and innovation there.
Huh, yeah, that's interesting.
He uses this analogy of like Spanish cybersecurity companies being like athletes training in like a rundown gym.
Okay, I can see that.
They got the skills and the drive, right? But they don't have the resources or the support to really like reach their full potential.
So what's holding them back then?
He thinks it's a lack of investment.
Okay.
Both like financial investment and also, mentorships and support networks.
Uh-huh.
But he thinks Spain could be like this global cybersecurity powerhouse, if they just had a stronger ecosystem to like nurture that growth.
It's not just about the money, then it's about creating the right environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about the trends that are shaping the future of cybersecurity.
Okay.
Eduardo highlights a few key areas, starting with something he calls data absorbability.
Data absorbability, what is that?
Yeah, it's this idea that companies are collecting so much data, right?
Yeah, more than ever.
But they're having a hard time actually extracting meaningful insights from it.
Especially when it comes to security.
Yeah, they're drowning in data, but they're starving for information.
It's like having a million puzzle pieces, but no picture to work with.
Right, and Eduardo argues that we need new tools and technologies that can help us make sense of all this data.
So like AI and machine learning to like find patterns and detect anomalies and stuff?
Exactly. We need to turn all that raw data into actionable intelligence.
That security teams can actually use.
Right. And that's a huge opportunity for entrepreneurs who can figure that out.
Totally. What other trends is Eduardo keeping an eye on?
Well, he's really interested in the whole convergence of cybersecurity and industrial systems.
Like critical infrastructure stuff?
Yeah, as more and more that gets connected to the internet.
The attack surface gets way bigger.
Right, and the stakes are incredibly high. We're talking about power grids, transportation systems, manufacturing plants.
Things that we rely on every single day.
Yeah, if there's a successful attack on those systems, it could be catastrophic.
So how do we protect those systems then?
Well, that's where the cybersecurity mesh comes in.
Cybersecurity mesh.
Yeah, it's this idea of having like decentralized security controls so it's more adaptable and resilient.
So it's not just about building a wall around your network anymore.
Right, it's about having this more distributed defense system that can adapt to threats in real time.
So it's more flexible and agile?
Exactly. And this ties into another trend that Eduardo's excited about, automation and cybersecurity.
Okay.
We're seeing more and more use of AI and machine learning to automate tasks like penetration testing, threat detection, incident response.
It's like having a helper handle all the routine stuff so you can focus on the big picture.
Yeah, it frees up human experts to focus on the more strategic stuff, the stuff that machines can't do.
Right, and it's not just about efficiency. Automation can also improve accuracy and reduce human error.
Which is super important in cybersecurity. Right, one small mistake can have huge consequences.
Absolutely. So let's say you're an entrepreneur with this amazing cybersecurity idea. You've built a prototype. You've validated the market need. You're ready to scale up. What's the next step?
Well, you need funding, right? Got to get that fuel to launch your rocket ship.
Right. So what does Eduardo say about getting investors on board?
He really emphasizes the importance of demonstrating traction,
Okay, so it's not just about having a slick presentation. You got to have real-world results.
Exactly. Venture capitalists want to see that you're building a sustainable business, not just a cool product.
What kind of metrics are they looking for?
Things like user growth, customer acquisition, costs, revenue projections, stuff that shows you're on the right path.
And he says it's crucial to get expert advice during the whole fundraising process.
Don't try to do it all yourself. Find mentors, advisors, investors who can help you navigate that world.
Like having a guide to lead you through the jungle, right?
Exactly. You need people who've been there before and can help you avoid those pitfalls.
Now, Eduardo tells this fascinating story about the Iridium satellite phone company.
Oh, yeah, I heard of them.
They had this crazy technology, global satellite network, so you could make calls from anywhere on Earth.
Sounds pretty groundbreaking. What happened?
Well, they built this amazing technology, but they didn't really stop to think if people actually needed it or would pay for it.
Oh, so like the classic solution looking for a problem scenario.
Yeah, most people were fine with their regular cell phones, and the few who did need global communication didn't want to pay the premium price.
So they had a great idea, but they didn't validate it with the market.
Right. And Eduardo uses this story to make a really important point.
Which is?
Don't assume that a brilliant idea equals success.
You got to test your assumptions. You got to make sure you're building something that people actually want.
Yeah, you got to do your homework.
It's a good lesson for anyone developing new products or services, really.
Totally. So we've talked about a lot of stuff today, the challenges of entrepreneurship, the hot trends in cybersecurity. What are some of the key takeaways that have stuck with you?
I think for me, it's Eduardo's focus on execution.
Right.
Ideas are great, but there's the starting point. It's the execution. The ability to turn that idea into something real that solves a real problem, that's what matters.
Right. It's about having a plan and a team that can make it happen.
Exactly. And being able to adapt. The cybersecurity landscape is always changing.
It's like surfing. You got to be able to ride the wave.
Exactly. You got to be able to adjust and stay on top.
Okay, so before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought. So we've talked about the big trends shaping cybersecurity today, but the big question is, what's next?
Right. What's coming down the pipeline? What do entrepreneurs need to be thinking about now?
Exactly, because things change so fast in this field.
They do. Just look at mobile devices and cloud computing,
They totally changed the game.
So what's the next big disruption? Is it quantum computing, the metaverse? Something we haven't even thought of yet.
It's like trying to predict the weather, right?
Yeah, you can look at the patterns, analyze the data, but there's always going to be surprises.
So how can entrepreneurs even prepare for the unknown unknowns?
Well, Eduardo thinks it's all about having that mindset of continuous learning and exploration,
Stay curious, always be asking questions.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to challenge assumptions.
That's that entrepreneurial spirit, right?
Exactly, that willingness to explore new possibilities.
Yeah.
That's what's going to be essential in the future of cybersecurity.
And it's not just about reacting to threats anymore. It's about anticipating them.
Right, even creating solutions before the problems fully emerge.
Be proactive, not reactive.
Exactly. Understand the risks and opportunities of new technologies before they become mainstream.
And be okay with experimenting, even if it means failing sometimes.
Because sometimes those failures lead to the biggest breakthroughs.
So for anyone listening who's thinking about jumping into cybersecurity entrepreneurship, what's Eduardo's final piece of advice?
Well, he says it's really important to find your niche,
Okay.
your passion within cybersecurity, because it's such a broad field.
Right. It's not just one big thing.
There's so many different areas you could focus on: data security, network security, application security, cloud security.
It's about finding that sweet spot where your skills and interests meet a real need in the market.
And don't be afraid to start small.
Yeah.
Focus on solving a specific problem for a specific group of people.
And remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Building a successful business takes time and perseverance.
And a willingness to learn and adapt along the way.
But the rewards can be huge.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into cybersecurity entrepreneurship, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
The future of cybersecurity, it's not set in stone.
Great.
It's being shaped right now by the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the risk takers who are out there challenging the status quo.
Building the solutions that are going to protect us from the threats of tomorrow.
And who knows, maybe the next cybersecurity superstar is listening to us right now.
Maybe so.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been fun.
And for anyone who wants to keep learning, we've got some awesome resources in the show notes.
Definitely check those out.
So keep learning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep. Until next time.
See ya.